Okay, so here's the part two for a whole bunch of things that I forgot. So, some more symptoms you may have weaker than you've ever been before. So, like, maybe you used to be strong or stronger, you were just like decent, and now all of a sudden you can't open doors, you need help to open doors, you're kind of like embarrassed when trying to do certain things or carrying things because you really can't, and everyone else around you can't, even people that are like way younger than you. An example, or at least another example, is barely being able to or not being able to even push start on a washing machine, which actually happened to me once, but that was also a day where my blood sugar was 54, so there was that. So things like that, which also goes along with losing fat and muscle mass. Okay, wait a minute. Then another thing, no one talks about what diabetes or digestion issues actually are. And this goes back to just how the mainstream medical system is. They won't admit what actually causes diabetes. And the ones that do admit that like it has something to do with food still do it in a blamey way, where they're trying to make it seem like it's just about you eating a lot or something, like it just comes from you, I don't know, eating too many calories a day. Or they act like you're sitting around eating pizza every day, all day. But what I've realized is that it seems to be iatrogenic in general. And I don't even just mean from like the medical system's quote unquote meds or any of that. I mean like anything that organization that I definitely can't say the name of, but I'm gonna say it backwards. The ADF, and that goes right along with the standard American diet. And so yeah, the chemicals in the food and all that, if I can even say that much, all of that seems to be what really causes diabetes, insulin resistance, and all these other issues. So it seems like diabetes is all the way around iatrogenic. And one thing I noticed is that commonly when people have a lot of the symptoms that I've had throughout my life, well, not throughout my life, but since the iatrogenic injury, the symptoms that I've been having since the iatrogenic injury, or probably like all of them, when somebody would go to a doctor in the mainstream medical system with these symptoms of insulin resistance and related things, they're usually going to be told that they just need to lose weight or exercise or something. At least if they are like overweight or supposedly overweight, because you know, with these weird beauty standards, people get told that they're quote unquote too big when they're really not. It's just a bunch of weird stuff with that. But especially if they're obese, then they're going to be told lose weight. But the thing is, due to the fact that I've been underweight, that was never a line that could be used on me. And so my point of saying all this is that some people end up obese because of insulin resistance, and commonly the people who are underweight with insulin resistance never really find out that they're insulin resistant because they're quote unquote okay. But that just is a part of how, like, when you have issues like this, you usually get told that it's because of you or something you did, but that's not necessarily true, to be honest. Which goes into what I said in the other video, which was that being underweight and being overweight are commonly actually caused by the same thing: insulin resistance, microbiome imbalances, and I don't even think I said parasites in the last video, but that too. Mold. And I still feel like I'm forgetting something, but I don't remember what it was. One example of how no one ever talks about what digestion issues actually are is that in the mainstream medical system, if you can't digest food, or, well, they usually won't even admit that it's possible to not be able to digest food, and will just have you thinking that it's normal for food to go in and come back out the same way. But contrary to popular belief, you're not supposed to be having undigested food diarrhea and stuff like that. But anywho, when you have indigestion, or what they'll tell you is heartburn or acid reflux, they'll tell you that you need to take some type of antacid to lower stomach acid, when actually usually the reason you have issues like that is because you have low stomach acid already and you can't digest food, and then the antacids make everything worse. So that's one example. And then another example of how nobody talks about what diabetes actually is that one, people who get diagnosed with diabetes get told that they can still eat whatever they want and they can still eat bread and sugar. They just have to take the quote unquote meds. In fact, some people never even get told that carbohydrates like bread and grain also turn into sugar. Like, they just get told don't eat candy, but then they're still sitting around eating bread all day and trying to figure out why they're still having issues. Which kind of reminds me of things with like people who wet the bed and stuff like that. They may get told that they just need to stop drinking water like an hour or something before they go to sleep, but they don't get told that what's really causing it probably isn't even the water at all, but that could be part of it. But it's really the sugar, so like the bread, candy, stuff like that. So there's that. No one talks about how dangerous low or high blood sugar is. And doctors never tell you that high blood sugar damages your organs. And of course, I don't mean never like never. Some people actually do get told this, but commonly in the mainstream medical system, you don't. But definitely, if you get sick behind the Cash for Kids system or the People Cash Cow systems, you're never going to get told any of this. You're even more unlikely to ever even get told you have insulin resistance in the first place, or any of the other issues that you get, like the brain damage. So, one example is when you get the metabolic center / diabetes type 2 weight and you have the high A1C, the doctors are never going to tell you, like, how dangerous it actually is to have high blood sugar and high blood pressure, just like they won't tell you about how dangerous any of the other side effects are. And I don't really know what else to say about that. But yeah, they do not tell you that that can damage your organs, and even low blood sugar can, which I was never told that either. And of course, quote unquote meds in general damage your kidneys and stuff. But I do still feel like the iatrogenic induced insulin resistance is still probably more due to the brain damage and how it affects the way your organs work, and not just organ damage. But of course, both go hand in hand. And some advice that I could give is low carb and self-control against all odds, and eat at the same time every day. So like, even when you're having sugar cravings, try to not give in, or when you're having like thirds, to eat 30 times a day. And that was one of the funny things to people, is that I eat all the time, but I never gain any weight. And it's like, I don't know. It's just kind of annoying. especially because I'm not really in the situation for that, because then, like, I end up eating stuff I'm supposed to be saving. Oh, yeah, and then I wrote on the back, have to eat 30 times a day, even if you know deep down that you're really not that hungry. And that's another one of the funny things with issues like this. And it's common to have symptoms like that if you have parasites too, or even like bacterial imbalances, and I think mold can do that too. Which commonly all this goes hand in hand, because if you have insulin resistance, you're like more likely to get bacterial imbalances. And I mean, people get parasites regardless, but that's not talked about in the West. And I don't know if I already said this, but did I already say this? That you can get yeast infections? Anywho, like I've said before, people say in school, wait, hold up, because I couldn't really figure out how to get this sentence to make sense when I was writing it. But pretty much, you may have heard the joke, or really the kind of truth, that in school you learn things like mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, and people say you can't really use information like that in real life, and it's not useful. But it is useful if you become sick or you start trying to like help someone else who became sick, because I've realized and pieced together so many stressors of life cause mitochondrial dysfunction, from the food to the drugs slash the quote unquote meds, or for better words, anything that the ADF pushes out. High cortisol, diet issues throughout life. No one ever talks about type 1. Oh, hold up. I should have put a pause before that. But another thing, you always hear people talking about type 2 diabetes and about people being quote unquote obese and stuff like that, and acting like people just get sick because they're like sitting around eating pizza all day or something. And honestly, in the cases where that is what's going on, the reality is EDs come from SA. Of course, they come from other trauma too, and they can even come from not like being able to eat enough when the person was younger, but they really commonly come from SA and other trauma. But at the end of the day, the stuff that they put in the food makes the food addictive, and carbs are addictive, and sugar is addictive, and so is cheese, bread, caffeine, which bread is carbs. So that's why somebody would sit around eating pizza all day if they actually are, but that's not really ever the case. But still, you hear about type 2 all the time, but you never hear about type 1. And a lot of medical professionals even claim that you can't go from type 2 to type 1, or from what I really rather call type 2 to type 1 type symptoms. But that's not really that true. Anyway, another thing, don't fall into weight advice from anyone. Focus on not being in pain, blood sugar control, and digestion, not weight watching. And another thing, people thought I had IBD or something until I started HCl, or the betaine HCl with pepsin, the one supplement that proved to do something. So yeah, one thing I could totally say is that out of all the supplements people may say you should take, and all the things people may say you should do, and all of the diets, well, I mean, diets honestly can work, but I feel like it depends on your situation. It kind of seems like I'm up and down regardless. But out of everything that I've heard from people saying use turmeric, which before I started taking HCl, things like turmeric would actually burn very, very bad. Oranges would burn, apples would burn, kind of anything would burn, but certain things hurt worse. So yeah, out of everything, betaine HCl with pepsin helped me the most because I really couldn't digest anything. And there's that. Blood sugar issues could be the reason no diet seems to work. So like, if you were trying to figure out what was really causing your digestive issues and other symptoms, but it seemed like nothing really seemed to work, then it could be blood sugar related. Although one thing I can say though is that I feel like the situation with me is kind of weird, and with a couple other people I know, but it's already a known fact that the drugs you put on the Cash for Kids system do leave you with a lot of issues and cause metabolic issues. And the thing is, I don't believe in disease and things are curable, but if we didn't spend so much time getting gaslit about everything, then, well, that, and if we actually had rights, especially depending on your age and the situation, and like if you were in a conservatorship or something, we could have like started working on our issues way sooner. And I actually have told the story of this boy I know. Hopefully he's okay. He did watch my videos sometimes, and he's in a similar situation. He has metabolic issues from the drugs and from being dragged into the whole gender thing. So they told him he was delusional. You're delusional about feeling upset about your situation, your abuse situation, but we do want you to become a girl though. So yeah, that's what they do. Kind of reminds me of a situation with me, although luckily I wasn't I'm not brainwashed easily. Not trying to be rude or anything, but I just am lucky that I wasn't able to be pushed into this. But there's a story I used to tell about how, actually around the time of the whole "why are you 16 and 80 pounds" thing, some doctors spent more time trying to talk me into becoming transgender than they did about any of the actual issues.